Hey, this is driver 88. For this year, 2025, we have driven and reviewed 9 different Ferraris. And for our 10th Ferrari, Lorbeck Luxury Cars Sydney has done a very, very nice thing, and they've driven down their very incredibly high-spec SF90 Assetto Fiorano pack. This is the car that has been discontinued as of yesterday, being superseded by the new Testarossa. So it made me think, given that these 5 or so years has just flown by, how well has this car aged and how does it stack up against its competition of today as a slightly used car? We have one of the highest specs, incredible looking SF90s I've ever seen, and we're allowed to drive it, so that's fantastic. Let's go and check it out. So now that it's been discontinued, the SF90, what do you think about the looks? How has it aged in its 6 years of tenure? Personally, against the new Testarossa, I mean, everyone is sort of biased towards older cars. Everyone thinks that new cars don't look as good, but personally, I prefer the front and the rear and side profile of this car. I feel like the Testarossa looks too much like the F80. I like this arrow-shaped, sharp look at the front rather than the sort of 70s concept car of the Testarossa. Of course, this was designed by Manzoni, who I think has had a mixture of hits and misses, but of course it's all subjective, right? In this Fiorano color, my goodness, it looks so good. And it's one of the few colors that I think matches well with the Assetto Fiorano Arrow. The spec is enormous, but first let's talk about the performance. So you'll notice that this car has an enormous carbon spoiler as well as an enormous diffuser. The Assetto Fiorano pack, which you'll see on the kick plates, was about $150,000 option. So this car is 30 kilos lighter, and it's even lighter due to the carbon wheels, the carbon underbody, and as well as the carbon door panels. An enormous amount of power, 1,000 PS or 986 brake horsepower. This was just huge in 2019. Pretty much nothing really kept up with it in most cases. Some people call this a hypercar when it came out because it matched the previous hypercar generation of the Holy Trinity's performance. I don't really think it's a hypercar though. Ferrari, in fact, calls it a sports car. They only call supercars their Big 7, the car that they make every decade. They call that a supercar if you check their website. Nonetheless, on an average road, you can hit high 9s, even mid 9s to the quarter mile. On a perfect surface, we've seen people hit 9.3 seconds. It seems like a fabled number from only a few years ago. 800 newton meters combined torque seems like a bit of an iffy number from Ferrari. It's more than likely 1200 or something crazy like that. The car is relatively heavy, of course, being a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 with hybrid systems and all-wheel drive. Maybe 1650 kilos, maybe more. We'll see how it feels when we drive it. Now, the main rival to the SF90, you could say, even though it came out 4 years later, was the Lamborghini REVUELTO. They're semi-close with their straight line performance and their price here in Australia. However, even though the REVUELTO came out 4 years later, in most tests I've seen, most of the time, the SF90 is still faster in a straight line. And any of the third-party testing I could find on the track, like the Donington Park or Verano Pro, this turned up 2 seconds faster in both instances. So the REVUELTO may have a V12, but it's quite a heavy guy and doesn't always beat its competitor, which is 4 years older. Now, of course, the Testarossa has come out with more power and less weight, etc., so that battle might already be lost. Now we have a little bit of extra space, incredibly light carbon front bonnet. Now, prices of these start at about $930,000 or so. This one has no less than 27 options, hitting 1.3 million or so Australian dollars. Now, one of the options that you would never guess is actually built right here in Australia is the carbon wheels, and they were $50,000. So Carbon Revolution, based here just an hour's drive from Melbourne, make every single carbon wheel on all the limited Ferraris. So really quite impressive. This color itself, I've never seen it before. It's Rosso Fiorano, I believe. Now, let's go through all the different pieces which make this an Assetto Fiorano pack. It's very extensive. And the options on this car are incredible. The interior is one of the best I think I've ever seen. I know that some people really don't like some of the haptic buttons and touch buttons on the steering wheel, but we've still got a physical Manettino switch at least. So the spec continues with, of course, the Ferrari shields. You've got to have stitched cavalinos in the headrests, carbon fiber racing seats, carbon fiber in your center tunnel, carbon fiber, carbon fiber, carbon fiber, but also the spec is just so tastefully done. There's just a little bit of brown against black. Too many people go over the top with their Ferrari specs. Like we had an 812 GTS, which had a Christmas theme going on the inside that I drove yesterday. It was still beautiful, but it's important to not go overboard, I think, with your colors, trim, and stitching. One of the best interior specs I've ever seen. Now, with these modern Ferraris, a lot of the buttons and things seem to change places all the time. But one thing that's kind of like a hark back to the past is the rear engine lever, which is something of a car from Ferrari from decades ago. And just have a look at how low the F154 is in the engine bay. It's so low, and of course, to aid in the weight distribution, the big turbos either side. This engine actually started with a California T, and it's just been reworked and reworked to make an enormous amount of horsepower, over 700, and just out of this world, blisteringly fast. Right, now could you drive an SF90 Stradale daily? I guess you could. It's very low to get in and out of, but in terms of how easy it is to drive, the steering is incredibly light, the fuel consumption is not that bad. It's not crazy loud, but I do enjoy a bunch of those turbo whistle noises. Visibility is perfectly fine for a supercar, and it's not exactly massive like an Aventador or something like that. So I'm quite interested. I've been driving this around today, and I feel like obviously it's incredibly fast. I remember when this car first came out, a lot of top journalists that I look up to who can drive 10 times better than me, they didn't really like how this car drove on the limit. But I think for 90% of people, this is one of those quintessential modern supercars. You've got a long service plan, you can extend the warranty to 15 years. In a single day, you can go on a long drive with your significant other, go on a track day, absolutely destroy the track day with these Cup 2Rs, which are on the Assetto Fiorano pack. Drive a long distance home, maybe at night time you could take it to the drag strip and run a mid 9-second pass. And you can do all of that with peace of mind, a warranty, and in comfort. And that is just mind-blowing from only, you know, a little while ago. Amazing, just truly amazing. Like the power and offer in this thing, obviously it's huge. It's the responsiveness that's massive. The peak torque comes in at 6,000 RPM, but that is no problem because the revs pick up very, very quickly. So the Assetto Fiorano pack, 150,000 Australian dollars. Guess how much the taxes are on this car? 380,000 total dollars to purchase this thing brand new. That's the cost of a GT4 RS just in taxes. But, you know, when you live in this state, that's just the way it is. Oh, she's so angry. Now, in living with the SF90, I find that most of the buttons have been relatively easy to work out. Even though I've been in a few Ferraris over the time, I still don't like this navigation that's touch here. But the things that are important feel fantastic, like the small steering wheel, the huge paddles, and the Manettino switch. Now you put the car into qualifying mode and you've hit absolute warp drive. It is just out of this world fast. It's relentless, and like I said, the torque feels like 1200 Newton meters plus. This doesn't feel like 800. This engine has just an almost like a box of bees. It's so angry. It's not as loud as maybe a 458, but it has an aggression to it that's very, very satisfying. Really, really aggressive in qualifying mode. And I mean, this gearbox, so this is the 8-speed gearbox. Yesterday I jumped out of an 812 GTS. Now that 7-speed gearbox is no doubt fast for its time. Even though this came out at the same sort of period 5 years ago, this box is 30% faster and 10 kilos lighter. And the shifts are just instant. With the sort of 812, there's just that little bit of hesitation that you can only notice because gearboxes have gotten so fast. But geez, this, you know, as soon as you think about it, you're in the torque band, you've got all of that 1000 horsepower before you know it. It's very satisfying. And if you want, of course, you can spin all 4 tires up pretty easily when they're not super warm. Look, the steering is possibly a bit of a low point. Like, I'm not getting much steering feel that I would in a McLaren or a Porsche, but all of the other attributes kind of take my mind away from it because you need to focus because this car is so fast. And also, it's a $1.3 million car, and it's been loaned to us by the very kind people at Lorbeck Luxury Cars. So I don't think I have a front lift on this car, and we've got a very expensive front carbon splitter, so I'm being extra careful and being aware of everything around me. Look, I think that this car, it didn't really make as many waves aesthetically as some of the previous flagship V8 models, but I don't know about this Testarossa. I think that, you know, to an extent, a lot of people are not too happy about the direction that Ferrari's going with their aesthetics, and they dream about that Pininfarina style coming back. All I know is that this car is just, look, it was so ahead of its time 5 years ago, and the fact that it still will more than most of the time romp a Revuelto, which is a V12. Yeah, I mean, it is like, I've owned a 720S before, and it just feels that whole extra step above. And on top of everything, you get the assurance of all-wheel drive grip, so you can put your foot in it. You know, an 812 GTS is fantastic, but you can't really put your foot down that often, nor can you even in a 458. But with this thing, it's all the performance on offer all the time. And it sounds much better than I thought it would. So, very, very cool. Very, very cool car. I can't believe it's been discontinued. Anyway, if you're interested in any supercars or Ferraris, check out our friends Lorbeck, and they can help you out. Otherwise, this is driver 88, and this Ferrari sure did outdo my expectations.